Let's check in on the South Australian election. It is fast approaching, and now One Nation candidate, I think that's what we can call him, Cory Bernardi, joins us live right now. Good to see you. Yeah, One Nation candidate. We've spoken a lot over the years, Cory, so sometimes it was Liberal Senator, but now it is One Nation candidate. Welcome back. Good to see you. I first want to ask about any preference deals being done or spoken about. Are you in any early stages of negotiation?
Clearly, I'm talking to a lot of colleagues in different political outfits because they want to ride the One Nation wave to their benefit. But ultimately, Pauline Hanson has always said that preferences are for individual voters to pursue. And one of our actual key policies this year is to make compulsory preferential voting actually optional, so that people don't have to or are not forced to vote for a party that is against their values or is against their lifestyle or how they want to live their lives. And I think that would be true democracy in this state. So at the moment, we're saying to people, you can make your choices yourself. But
you will do some deals, will you not?
I don't know if you want to call them deals. You know, in the end, we're going to have to make determinations about who is the least offensive party for our votes to flow onto if they're needed like that. But our ultimate goal is to be the final two, and so hopefully our preferences won't be distributed.
Who is the least offensive?
That's a very good question, isn't it? I know we'll put the Greens last, unless there's some sort of even more communistic party there. You know, I think the two major parties, the uni party, as I say, the Labor Party is very arrogant at the moment. They are turning their backs on over 20% of the South Australian populace by saying they'll refuse to preference One Nation. And that's really a very arrogant position. The Liberals, very hard to show some love for them because they've actually done nothing except have a revolving door of leadership over the last 4 years, haven't held the government to account at all, let down the South Australian people. And I think that's why so many people are now saying, hang on, we need a strong and powerful and courageous voice that's going to stick up for us here in South Australia, and that's what One Nation's trying to do, Laura.
What have you seen on the ground as well? Because there is a big question here at the South Australian election about how you translate in the polls. One Nation typically has not seen that high level of polling translate into actual votes at an election time. So what are the KPIs? What's the measure of success in terms of results at this election for One Nation?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we're trying to manage expectations because our opponents, of course, will lambast however we perform as some sort of failure. We know the attacks will come in the next couple of weeks to try and drive down our vote. But on the ground, the sense is very real that there is a need for change and that One Nation, and after 3 decades of hard work by Pauline Hanson, One Nation is the only party that is actually prepared to speak up for the things that matter. Immigration, cost of living, the high electricity prices and so forth. And the reason is because we say what we mean and we mean what we say. And I think that's very different to the flip-flopping that goes on in other parties. From my personal perspective, what does success look like? Well, whether One Nation wins 1 seat or 2 seats or we actually happen to win 10 seats, we will be the strongest voice for South Australians. We will leave no one behind. We will talk truth to power, and we will ensure that the arrogant Malinowskis government, which is highly likely to get elected, will actually be held to account, because for 4 years they have had an untrammelled run. And it's so disappointing for my state when people are being distracted by very popular events, which the Malinowskis government has introduced, but they're being distracted from the very real crumbling of what's undergoing here. Yeah. We have very high.
Do you like those events, though? Do you take part in them? Are you a bit of a live golf fan?
This is what I say. Some of them are very popular, right? And so immeasurably, they're good for the state. We know the hospitality industry like them, right? Yeah. No, they are important. But what happens when the money runs out, Laura? These are taxpayer-funded events. They cost us a lot of money.
Did you attend
peer behind the screen?
Did you go to live golf, Cory?
No, I didn't actually, Laura. But anyway, thanks for that.
Sorry, I just thought you were angling at that. I just wanted to make sure.
No. when you peer behind the screen and you see the hospital system is not working, ambulance ramping is terrible, you've got the jobs growth that's happening in this state is mostly in government jobs, you've got insolvencies for small businesses, families are doing it tough, electricity prices are the highest basically in the Western world. The infrastructure of this state is actually crumbling, and Peter Malinauskas wants to throw some circuses on so he can be the emperor. Well, I'm saying the emperor's got no clothes on.
Cory Bernardi, it's good to have you back on the show after all these years. Maybe we should check in regularly. I'll try you next week.
All right, Laura.
Authorised by Pauline Hanson, 12 Boronia Road, Brisbane.